There's an island nestled in San Francisco Bay that for decades has fueled fear, mystery, and legend. Its name is Alcatraz, but for many it was simply Devil's Island. Amid the cold Pacific mists and merciless waves, this isolated rock housed America's most feared prison. A place designed not to re-educate, but to break, to contain the incorrigible. Those who entered Alcatraz knew it, there was no escape. Yet one night in 1962 someone tried, and perhaps they actually succeeded, but to understand this escape we must go back to when it all began. When the federal penitentiary opened its doors in 1934, the goal was clear: to lock up America's most feared men in a place from which no one could escape. The reinforced concrete walls are over a meter thick. Steel grates descend sheer into the rock, and enormous floodlights scan the bay from dawn to dusk. Every step in and out of the cells is watched by guards trained not to look away even for a moment. Life inside Alcatraz is reduced to the bare essentials: a bed, 3 meals, 8 hours of forced labor. The sound of the ocean filters everywhere, a reminder that frigid water and violent currents are the rock's second barrier. Among the most famous guests are Al Capone, Machine Kelly, and Robert Stroud, but in 1960, a man destined to change the prison's history arrives. His name is Frank Lee Morris, a brilliant mind and an indomitable spirit. A few weeks later, brothers John and Clarence Anglin, who grew up on the rivers of Florida and are tireless swimmers, are also transferred. They don't yet know each other, but fate is already putting them on the same path. After months of silent observation, the impregnable island begins to reveal small, figurative cracks. Nothing definite, just intuitions. An old ventilation duct, a shift change that leaves a corridor unguarded, a shadow on the outside wall. It's the beginning of something that for now exists only in the thoughts of the 3 future accomplices. Music. The days pass slowly, but the night lights up Frank Morris's mind. In the narrow cell of Block B, he listens to the steady breathing of his companions. The countdown begins before the nighttime inspection passes. When the corridor returns to silence, he carefully removes the grill of the ventilation duct behind the sink. The paint, over the decades, has already weakened the edges. A pencil sharpener file, worked during workshop hours, is enough to open the first opening. Every chip of concrete is hidden in the pocket of his uniform and scattered the next morning in the courtyard, mixed with the dust. A few days later, Morris asks for a shift at the laundry. There he meets John Anglin. They don't talk about escape, not even a direct reference. They discuss cold water, currents, the eddies that form between Alcatraz and Angela Island. These are banal phrases, yet behind every word lies a calculation. How long could a trained man last? How far can he cover before the bay turns into an icy vortex? Clarence listens from afar, memorizing, connecting the dots. One evening, back in their cell, the 2 brothers meet Frank's gaze. It's barely a second, but enough for an understanding to blossom. They need equipment. They need patience. They need something to confuse the guards. Over the next few months, the 3 collect disposable spoons, scraps of metal from a discarded vacuum cleaner, and vegetable glue secretly made with baking powder and soap. With these materials, they make improvised chisels and, above all, create papier-mâché casts of their own heads. They use scraps of newspaper, glue, and hair collected from the prison barber. The heads, painted with coffee to create a shade of flesh, will rest on the pillows. The night of their escape. Alcatraz's security system requires hourly visual checks, not physical contact. A well-executed illusion will buy time. The excavation work proceeds in parallel behind each of the 3 cells. The shaft widens toward a service corridor hidden behind the rear wall. Frank drills at a precise pace. Few blows, long intervals. When the hammer test arrives, he stops. Applause. During fire alarm drills, the hammering gets louder, so the sound is drowned out by the general din. The Anglins alternate their partners in shifts to avoid suspicion, repeating the same ritual with identical precision. 1962 enters the calendar, bringing with it a harsh winter. The water temperature drops to nearly 10 degrees Celsius, but the 3 know they can't wait for spring. Each additional day is an unpredictable variable. A change of guard, a maintenance inspection, even a new inmate in the block. Waiting could cause the plan to collapse, and the plan is now the only reason for existence. By January, the openings behind the sinks are already wide enough to fit a thin body. Everyone builds a small cardboard bellows connected to a plastic tube to blow away the dust silently. When the guards count the prisoners in their hour of exercise, Frank observes the central turret. The angle of vision doesn't cover a portion of the outside courtyard, it marks the spot in his mind. It could be the perfect place to drop a makeshift raft, but first they need a way to float. At the maintenance shop, the Anglin brothers obtain bundles of old raincoats. They sew them with wax thread, seal them with the heat of a lamp, creating a series of air chambers. Little by little, a foldable raft emerges, rollable into a bag that can pass for a standard laundry bag. By early May, everything is ready. All that's missing is the right night. Frank listens to the weather forecast on the mess hall radio. Moderate currents, approaching fog, a waning moon, ideal conditions. Yet he decides to wait a little longer. He wants the ocean to be just a little calmer, for the frigid water to cool a couple of degrees, so that the guards, accustomed to the bay's climate, will be convinced that no one in their right mind would attempt swimming in those conditions. They know full well that the temperature will never drop to lethal levels, but the others do not. The fateful date arrives without warning. It's June 11th, 1962. The three men, without a hint, understand that the moment has come. At 9:30 p.m., the dormitory lights go out. The papier ham-sea heads are placed on pillows, the sheets are pulled up to their chins. Overall, the image is perfect, aided by the darkness of the corridor. Shortly after 11 p.m., the ventilation grates give way completely. Frank Morris slips first into the service corridor, a dark passageway smelling of rust and dust. The ocean's breath reverberates through the pipes like a distant drum. Behind him, John and Clarence advance in silence, clutching the bag with the rolled-up raft. A web of large vertical pipes rises before them. Frank grabs the first duct and begins to climb. His palms slide on the damp metal, but the adrenaline erases the fatigue. The duct grate, sawn through days earlier, gives way with a push of the shoulder. A sheet of metal with a fan creaks, then moves just enough. A gust of icy air hits the three men. Above, the sky is almost black. The crescent moon is too thin to cast any light. The tower's headlights trace slow white cones that pass over the chimneys and disappear over the edge. Crouched, the three count the rhythm of the luminous blades. A blink of darkness, a few meters in the air. Thus, shadow after shadow, they reach the northwest corner of the roof, ready to descend toward the hidden shore. A large drainpipe extends from the gutter and drops sheer down the outside wall. John is the first to descend. He slides slowly, his legs wrapped around the pipe until he touches the concrete. He takes refuge in the shadows. Clarence follows immediately after, without a word. Frank remains last, closes the trapdoor, leaving behind the rock and his legend of invincibility. At midnight, the three silently walk along the paved road behind the building, skirting the old warehouses and heading toward the power plant area. They continue to the darkest and most isolated shore. There, hidden behind some bushes and rocks near the service facilities, they open the bag and lay out the raft of 50 sewn raincoats. John takes out the bellows, an old concertina that they have transformed into a pump. Connect the hose to the valve. The folds of tarpaulin open and close like gills, pushing air into the rubberized fabric. In less than 3 minutes, the main chamber is rigid, the fabric holds. Then it's the turn of the two life jackets. A quick decision. Frank holds the raft. The anglers enter the water and push off. In seconds, they're all aboard. The current grabs them immediately. It drags the small boat west-northwest. The lights of San Francisco appear like a mirage, flickering in the haze. The wind is biting, water splashes in their faces, but no one speaks. All their energy is devoted to rowing, to staying warm, to ignoring the whispering fear of hypothermia and sharks. At dawn, 6 hours later, the alarm comes. Sirens shatter the silence. Coast Guard patrol boats depart for patrol. Helicopters crisscross the sky. In Frank's cell, Papier Match's head cracks under a guard's flashlight, revealing the deception. The largest manhunt ever seen in the bay begins. In the morning, the tide rises and a life jacket, shreds of yellow canvas, and perhaps part of the raft are found, but no trace of the three men. The official fear is that the fugitives drowned, swept out to sea, or swallowed by the cold, but there are no bodies, and the absence of bodies gives rise to myth. Word spreads along the coast, crosses states, and reaches newspaper editors. Some claim the three have disappeared into the fog forever. Others swear they glimpsed them in Mexico, behind dusty shop windows. Investigators comb through hundreds of leads to no avail. The Anglin's mothers receive postcards with no return address. "We're fine. they read in uncertain handwriting. Are they real or a cruel prank? Months pass, and the prison director drafts a conclusive report: probable drowning. The dossier doesn't convince everyone, but those in charge need certainty. A prison deemed impregnable can't admit otherwise. In 1963, Alcatraz closes forever. Operating costs are too high, the headlines say. Some suspect the escape has damaged the prison's reputation beyond repair. Years turn into decades. In 1979, the FBI closes the case without definitive evidence of death. In 2013, a letter attributed to John Anglin surfaces. "We've arrived," it reads. "Frank died in 2008. Clarence in 2011. I'm 79 and in need of medical attention. Experts examine the ink, the handwriting, and the DNA on a stamp. The result is inconclusive. The mystery hangs in the balance like a rope thrown between two shores that never touch." Today, Alcatraz is a museum. Tourists walk the corridors. They listen to the audio guide, which reproduces the guard's footsteps, a prisoner's voice, the clanging of iron doors. In front of Morris and the Anglin cells, they all stop. They imagine the open grill, the escape into the darkness, the raft being inflated by hand. Some smile, others remain silent. Everyone decides whether to believe the legend or the official version. And perhaps it's right, because Alcatraz, even before being stone and concrete, is the idea of an impassable border. The feat of the three escapees has cracked it, proving that even in a place designed to crush all hope, the certainty of freedom can blossom. The rock still watches over the bay. Every night, the lights of San Francisco reflect on the water like an invitation. Who knows if, somewhere, one of the escapees has ever gazed again at those same lights, remembering the rustle of the wind on the roof, the sting of the salt on their skin, the impetuous pounding of their heart as the raft glided toward the unknown. Maybe so, maybe not. But their story continues to whisper that no prison is eternal when ingenuity and willpower meet. And so, in the fog of the bay, Alcatraz still lives not as a symbol of fear, but as the echo of a bold dream of escape. If this story has kept you on the edge of your seat, join us on our journey towards new adventures. Subscribe to the channel and support me, so I can bring you even more exciting journeys into the past and beyond.